There we go. All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome in. Happy Friday. Hi, Random. And, yeah, we are live everywhere. So we are live on TikTok, and we are live on the tube of you, and we are live on Twitch. Not that anybody ever joins me on the other applications. Pretty much y'all over here. This is where the cool kids are, apparently. So, but we are reading the next 2 chapters of Darth Maul Shadowhunter. Right? So, we'll give everybody like 5-10 minutes to hop in. Yeah. Check out my pants. Look at these. They're my Harry Potter pants that I got for Christmas. I love my Harry Potter jammies. I know, I'm such a weirdo. But yeah. Anyway, welcome. Hope everybody had a good week. Hope everybody had a good Friday. For me, it was... Actually, today wasn't so bad. Like, usually Fridays are kind of busy for me, but not this Friday. This Friday was actually kind of chill. I had my annual performance evaluation, which is always fun. I need to make a Jen video about annual performance evaluations because I hate them. I hate annual performance evaluations with a deep-seated passion. Like today my boss is like, where do you see yourself in 2 years? Or where do you want to see yourself in 2 years? And I just, like, I made up an answer, but like the real answer I wanted to give was employed. I hope I'm still employed in 2 years, making a similar salary to what I am currently making. Like... In the current climate, I just want to still have a job making what I make now. Like, I don't really want to... Is that bad? Like, that's really the answer I had for, like, where do you see yourself in 2 years? I was like, hopefully employed. Like, I don't really care about anything else. Yeah. So, anyway. Yeah. Oh, that'll be fun, Random. I'm jealous. Yep. I was hoping I could go to Batu East in the fall, but that does not seem to be happening. Again, the current geopolitical climate means that I'm being very cautious with how I spend my money. Oh, and tomorrow, good news. Tomorrow is my polar plunge. Yay! The Narkina 5 swim team jumps in the water tomorrow. So if you are near the Virginia Beach oceanfront, come out and see us tomorrow. I believe we jump in around 1 p.m. So, I'm good, Assad. How are you? Yeah, ice water. It's gonna be so cold. But yeah, I'm super excited. Will there be video? Yes. Vader? I'm not sure. One of our guys does have a GoPro, and my dad will be there, and Mini Mando and Tiny Mando, so there will be people to film me hopping in the water. We'll see. I mean, we'll see, but, that's so weird. But yeah, hang on. There's some comments that were filtered. I actually saw a share on Facebook about that, maybe from the 501st overall. I don't know about the 501st overall, but the 501st, near to us, so, Garrison Tyrannus is the one that's doing it, so it's Garrison Tyrannus, and then we are Sienner Fleet. I say Sienner Fleet is probably the one doing it, but honestly, like, we don't really, like, make a line between the different fleets for the state of Virginia. Oh, hi, Omni. Like, yeah, I'm part of Sienner Fleet, but then we have, oh, nice. I love the people from Carolina Garrison. I get to see them when I do GalaxyCon Raleigh. So, the Carolina Garrison is also really sweet. Oh, that's nice, Random. So yeah, I will say that the one that's doing it is Garrison Tyrannus, but I know the Carolina Garrison. They're also a lot of really sweet folks. That's one of my favorite Boba Fett's is from Carolina Garrison. I can't say it's my favorite because we have my Mando clan Firestorm has their own Boba Fett, so I kind of have to like him better because he's one of my VOD, but like Keith. Boba Fett Keith. actually have I'm in his if you're friends with some of them, like his Boba Fett, I'm on his title page on his Facebook because we took pictures at GalaxyCon. So yeah. Ever seen the pink Mandos? Are they Barbies? There is like a Barbie Mandalorian. I think it's in California. We had a guy that was working on a kit in our clan, our Mandalorian clan, that was pink. Oh, thank you, Better. But he got kind of kicked out, sort of, before he was ever official. I'm like somewhere between North Carolina and Virginia. Like, yeah, I'm North Carolina because it's where I live, but then like all of my Mandalorian and Star Wars people are in Virginia. Because technically all of the like Carolina Garrison and Talon clan, which is the Mandalorian clan for North Carolina, and I don't know, I think it's just Carolina base for the Rebel Legion. They are 3 hours away. Yeah, near Fort Bragg. I'm right up by the Outer Banks. So like the Carolina Garrison, like technically I'm supposed to be part of the Carolina groups because I live in North Carolina, but they're all based out of Raleigh, which is 3 hours away. And I am in Northern, so like all of the Virginia people are closer. It's a 30-minute drive to a lot of the Virginia stuff. It's a 3-hour drive to Carolina, the Carolina stuff. So I don't do the Carolina Garrison and stuff. But we do like, we're all kind of VOD because like we go down to GalaxyCon Raleigh, so like we help out with their tables and stuff like that. So we chill with them. Because in the club, we all Star Wars nerds. But yeah, we had a guy who had a pink Mando suit, and he got kind of kicked out. So, I mean, like it takes a lot to get kicked out of the groups. But if you're kind of a jerk, he was using slurs of many different kinds, and it was just kind of decided that he couldn't really be a part of the group anymore. Are in the SoCal Garrison? Ah. Well, Slimo. The ones that have been guiding the SoCal Garrison. I have not gotten to meet any of the SoCal. I definitely think the next time I go to California, I want to try and like say hey to the people in California. I hear they're really chill. I am maybe going to Kansas again in May. If you guys don't remember, I went to Kansas back in August because my grandmother was about to pass away. She did not pass away while I was there. She passed away the week after. I honestly couldn't tell you which was worse, like not being there when she passed, or if I had been there, would it have been worse? So I don't really know how to answer that one. But my cousin, her son just passed away, my cousin in Kansas, so I wanted to go out and support her. Yeah. They do a Hollywood Christmas parade? Oh, that would be cool. I think, I think our guy, our Boba Fett for the Firestorm clan is actually from SoCal. I think he was closer to the San Diego, because he's Navy, so he was San Diego. Sailor Boy, I missed you last Saturday. Where were you on my live? I did the spicy book and you weren't there. I missed you. Anyway, so yeah, I would like to interact with some of the SoCal people But I think, yeah, I think our Boba Fett, because he's Boba Fett for 501st and he's Boba Fett for the Mercs. I think he's from the SoCal garrison. I mean, he's from San Diego, which is even farther down than what SoCal. I mean, it's SoCal, but not... SoCal to me is like LA. San Diego is a different section of SoCal. I realize that it's all technically Southern California, but I get there's kind of like a difference in culture between San Diego and LA. Do you think I sound LA? I love LA. Thank you. Has anyone ever done young Boba walking around with Jango's helmet? They probably do have multiple garrisons. I mean, garrisons, it depends on how many people there are. Like, if you can get enough people to form a garrison in your city, then that will have a garrison. Like, Carolina garrison covers the entire state. Garrison, and I don't think they have, like, Carolina does not have any fleets to break it up. So, like, there's usually a large garrison, and then you'll have fleets to break up the garrisons. So like we're Garrison Tyrannus, which I think is the entire state of Virginia, but then we have different fleets. Like there's a fleet for Appalachia, there's a fleet for Northern Virginia, there's a fleet for Southern Virginia, and then I think there's like a fleet for the middle of Virginia too. It just depends. Like if you have enough people, then you're gonna have you're gonna have fleets and you're gonna have garrisons and you're gonna do all that. It just depends. And then it depends, like for Firestorm Clan, like for the Mercs, we are mostly Tidewater, Virginia area. We do kind of extend, like technically we have people up in Northern Virginia, but if the Northern Virginia people want to do something, like they're going to go with Kira Marut, which is the Mandalorian clan out of Maryland. Most of the events that Firestorm Clan does are Tidewater, Virginia, maybe up into Richmond. If we have people who are part of Firestorm Clan, because that like we have somebody who was living down here and now they live in Northern Virginia, like they'll do stuff with Kira Marut, which is up in Maryland, and they're Northern Virginia. Again, me, technically, I'm supposed to be part of Carolina Garrison because our Talon clan, because I'm in North Carolina, but again, they're 3 hours away, so I'm not going to do a whole lot with them. Now, Virginia actually has two Mandalorian Merc clans. There is Firestorm, which is the eastern part of the state. There is one that is in the western part of the state in Appalachia, Shenandoah Valley area, because they're so far away and they had enough people to form their own clan. It just depends. Mandalorian clan, again, I feel like I have to say Mandalorian clan because I don't want to get in trouble talking about clans, but Mandalorian clan. San Diego's its own, then LA County, Orange County, Inland Empire. Yeah, I mean, it just depends on how many people you have. Like, if you have a garrison or if you have a fleet or anything like that, it just depends on how many people there are. But I know for Virginia, I think the entire state of Virginia is Garrison Tyrannus, and then we have different fleets across the state. Now, as far as I know, the Polar Plunge is Garrison Tyrannus. It's not fleet specific. It's just the whole garrison. Sometimes we just have stuff that's fleet specific. Sometimes we have stuff that's even wider. Yeah, no, what, Malachi? I don't understand. You know how the E11 blaster always has the stock folded. I mean, yeah, I guess I'm not as like super knowledgeable about Star Wars blasters as one might think. I can identify a Westar 35, a DC-17, and a Snubble. And that's about as far... Oh, and the Naboo pistol, which I don't know what it's called, but I can identify that one. Especially because it makes the hiccupy sound. But beyond that, I couldn't tell you the difference between the different blasters. That's not my specialty at all. But in one Mandalorian, it was unfolded. Oh, pulse rifle. I can identify a pulse rifle. A 501st member did that on purpose so unfolded could be approvals. Do I like to experiment? Like, experiment what? Like, do you mean, like, experiment in the kitchen? All the time. It drives my family crazy because I always kind of want to add new stuff and try new things. Like, experiment with slime? Yeah, I mean, kind of, sort of. I like STEM. What did you mean by experiment? So, anyway, I think the gang's all here. Have you guys ever heard of the baby? Go up and look up videos, baby runs for president. Okay? Go and look up baby runs for president. That's how I've started learning how to deal with this kind of stuff. I think it's called baby runs for, I think that's what the term is called. It's baby runs for president, but yeah. All right. We are on chapter 21 of our book. We are reading Darth Maul Shadowhunter. And Darth Maul Shadowhunter? Yeah. Darth Maul Shadowhunter is what we are currently reading. The next book, we are going out of order again. Sorry. We're going to read a book that is not a Legends book. We are going to read The Rise and Fall of the Empire, which I feel like will be a lot of fun right now. Right? Yeah. So we're going to read Rise and Fall of the Empire next after we finish this book. Yeah. Anyway, chapter 21. And again, after this book, following this book, from now on, if you miss a reading, all of the readings will end up going on Patreon. So for Patreon subscribers, if you guys like miss a night and you want to continue hearing the story, it'll be up on the Patreon after this book, because I didn't start it with this book. I should have done that, but just as it's a side note. So, okay. Chapter 21. As far from a distance, Darsha heard the sounds of a struggle. It seemed to rise and fall, the sounds breaking over her like oceanic waves as her mind struggled to find its way back to consciousness. She wished dimly that whatever was going on would stop, so that she could slip back down to the depths of the black well out of which she was reluctantly rising. She had been through a lot of pain and fear lately, and she felt she deserved a rest. But the altercation didn't subside. Instead, it grew louder. Now she recognized one of the voices. It was Lorn Pavan's. The other voice seemed to be non-human, mostly grunts and guttural bellows. It was obvious that he was in some kind of trouble, in her semi-conscious state. Darsha didn't see it. My hair is weird. Darsha didn't see any real reason why she should come to his aid. She didn't like him, and he'd made it perfectly clear that he wasn't overly fond of her. There didn't seem to be any personal animosity involved on his part. He just despised Jedi in general. In a way, that was even more insulting. Darsha would rather some base their dislike on her personality, not on an abstract that she represented. She could deal with enmity easier than bigotry. You know what? So can I. It was becoming painfully obvious, however, that the struggle she was hearing wouldn't resolve itself anytime soon. And suddenly, in a rush of returning wakefulness, Darsha remembered what had happened. The attack by unseen foes in the tunnels. The electroshock net that had been trapped them. She had been knocked out by the net's power field. Wherever she was now, could be any place healthy. Darsha opened her eyes and managed to raise her head enough to see what was going on, even though doing so sent a stab of pain like a blaster bolt through her skull. What she saw kicked her adrenal glands into overdrive. Pavan was struggling with several creatures, hard to tell in the dim light exactly what they were, other than bipedal and definitely subhuman. He had apparently managed to knock one of them unconscious. The limp form lay on the mossy stone floor next to the droid, who seemed to be out of commission as well. Darsha pushed herself up to a kneeling position. The movement attracted the attention of several of the creatures who were circling Pavan, looking for an opening. They turned and shambled toward her, their snarling mouths stretched wide. She saw the undulating skin that covered their eye sockets, and the horrors of sight caused her heart to stutter. Darsha gathered the force to her. Still on her knees, she thrust out both arms, fingers splayed wide, hurling twin waves of invisible power toward them. The unexpected surges struck them, causing them to stagger back. They howled in mingled fear and anger, an eerie ululation that reverberated in the chamber. Did I get David? Did David go away? I don't think he liked the way I answered him. Darsha took advantage of the momentary respite to stagger to her feet. She reached instinctively for her lightsaber and wasn't really surprised to find it was missing from its belt clip. She had no time to look for it, because now several more of the subhumans were lumbering her way. Though they moved slowly, it was hard to avoid them, given how many there were in a relatively small chamber. Pavan, who had taken two of them hanging onto each arm, saw she was awake. "Fawns!" he shouted to her. "They're cannibals!" His words sent a chill of fear and repugnance down Darsha's spine. Like most people who lived on Coruscant, she had heard the legends of the sightless subhumans, but had never considered them based in reality. Fear gave her new strength and focus, and once again she drove them back by throwing force waves at them. But they were stronger than they looked, and extremely tenacious. Though battered off their feet by her power, they picked themselves up and came back for more, moaning and howling. Pavan was doing worse than she was, having only his fists and feet to fight with. The Chthons were dragging him toward one of the darker recesses of the chamber. "I-5's been deactivated," he called to her. "He can help us." Yes, of course, Darsha thought. She had first-hand experience of how strong the droid was when he'd carried both of her and Pavan to safety after the Skycar's crash. She looked at I-5 and could just see in the dim light that the master switch on the back of his head was in the off position. Couldn't she reactivate him? She wasn't sure. There was no way she could reach him physically, and she wasn't at all confident in her control of the Force, particularly under these circumstances. It was the one thing to use it like a bludgeon against an enemy, but quite another to flip a small switch several meters away. But Yoda would say there was no difference. She pushed the doubts away. She had to do it, or she and Pavan were quite literally dead meat. She focused her mind on the droid, felt the tenuous, intangible connection between her thoughts and the cool metal of the control switch. She pushed against it with her mind, feeling the resistance. A Chthon grabbed her from behind. Darsha bit back a cry of shock and surprise. She felt her attenuated mental grip on the tiny nub of durosteel almost slip free, and with all the power of her, she thrust the force tendril against it. Hang on. Okay, I'm good. Are rabbit droids the only ones with a termination switch? Rabbit droids? He's a protocol droid, so I don't know. Maybe protocol droids are the only ones with an off switch? Then the Thon yanked her backwards, and she felt its clammy fingers like the hands of a corpse reaching up and close about her neck. A shrill screech, unlike anything she had ever heard before, suddenly filled the air. It was more than just unpleasant, it was actively painful. It drilled into both ears and expanded in the center of Darsha's head like something alive and voracious. The Chthon released her, and she staggered forward, clapping her hands over her ears. That helped somewhat, but not nearly enough. The one that self-terminated in Book of Boba Fett. I have no idea. Wait a minute. Do you mean rat droid? You mean a rat catcher droid? The ones, oh, rabbit droid. Oh, I know what you're talking about. Okay. Where's his head? You mean like this? This one, right? Yeah, like Phineas. Phineas is a rat catcher droid. Rabbit, you meant the ears. Okay, I see what you're talking about now. All right, we got it. We're good. Took me long enough. But it was obvious that the stridency was causing the Chthons more pain than she was feeling. Which made sense, certainly. Here in the eternal darkness, the creatures would have grown over generations to depend on their ears far more than their vestigial eyes. Their shrieks and moans of agony were barely audible above the continuing screech, which Darsha now realized was coming from I-5. The reactivated droid was standing. He moved quickly, pushing through the dazed group of subhumans towards Lorne Pavan, while the ear-splitting sound continued to emanate from his vocabulator. The Chthons, who had been dragging Pavan away, were writhing in pain like their comrades, leaving him free. Darsha followed in the droid's wake. I-5 grabbed Pavan and headed for the dark aperture of a tunnel in the chamber's far wall. No matter where it led, it had to be someplace better than where they were now. Yeah, but Maul's in the tunnels now, too. Not sure that's gonna be better, but okay. Darsha followed but the chances of them reaching it were not looking good. Though obviously still in pain, the Chthons were starting to rally, no doubt motivated by the sight of their dinner making an escape. Darsha hurled more invisible blows to either side, clearing a path for the three of them. But a large group was gathering ahead to block their escape. Darsha looked about desperately for something to use as a weapon and saw her lightsaber lying perhaps 5 meters away on a mound of mingled offal and techno-trash. With a gasp of surprise and gratitude, she reached out for it with her hand and her mind. The device flew from its position across the intervening space. A Cathan somehow sensed it sailing through the air and made a clumsy leap that almost intercepted it. He sprawled on the ground at her feet, and Darsha felt the lightsaber smack into her hand. A minute there, I thought she was going to say smacked into her head. She gripped the weapon in both hands, weaving it in a figure-8 defensive pattern. It was hard to concentrate as I-5 was still emitting this painful siren cry, and her head was feeling like it would come apart at any minute. She hoped that some of the Cathans would at least get hit by the shrapnel. Against the combined threats of her lightsaber and the droid's howl, the subhumans had no choice but to fall back. The three entered the tunnel at a dead run, I-5 in the lead and Darsha bringing up the rear. Their former captors' enraged cries followed them, but that was all. The phosphorescent lichen that covered the chamber's walls continued only a short way into the underground passage and then died out, save for sporadic patches that did little or nothing to relieve the darkness. I-5 illuminated his photoreceptors, revealing a brick-lined tunnel barely high enough for Lorne to stand upright. It did not run in a straight line, but instead meandered gently, first left, then right. I-5 shut off the screeching sound once they were out of sight of the Cathan's chamber. They dropped from a run to a fast walk. Darsha had to hustle to keep up with the long-legged strides of the other two, and each time her boots contacted the hard pavestone, she felt a new spear of pain go through her head. She wished devoutly that one of the Force's attributes was an ability to cure headaches. That would be a funny power, but I like it. Hang on. As if reading her mind, the droid began making another sound, a low trilling that was unlike the discordant noise of before as it was possible to be. It seemed to somehow penetrate her bones and muscles, indeed her very cells, and suddenly vibrate them, flushing away the toxins and pains that had filled them. After a few minutes, the sound ceased, leaving her feeling, if not in top shape, at least markedly better. After walking for another 5 minutes, I-5 stopped. Pavan and Darsha stopped as well, the latter deactivating her lightsaber as she did so. "My sensors indicate no one is following us," the droid said. "Let's keep moving anyway," Pavan replied. "You were wrong before, remember?" "Don't be so hard on him," Darsha said. "After all, he just saved our lives again." "Much as I crave validation, I feel constrained to point out that you saved us this time," said I-5. "I couldn't have done anything if you hadn't reactivated me." Though the droid was speaking to Darsha, he was looking at Lorne Pavan. Pavan hesitated a moment, scowling, then he looked at Darsha and said, "He's right. Thanks." It obviously had taken a herd of wild banthas to drag the words out of him. Why did he hate Jedi so much? Darsha wondered. Aloud, she said, "No problem. You saved my life back in the sky car. Now we're even." Pavan gave her a look that seemed equal parts gratitude and resentment. He said to I-5, "Let's find the fastest route back to the surface. Even the raptors look friendly compared to what lives down here." The droid nodded and started walking again. The two humans followed. Neither of her companions spoke further, which suited Darsha just fine. She strode along behind Lorne Pavan, wondering once again what caused his intense antipathy toward her and her order. She could simply ask him, of course. The only reason she hadn't done so yet was because there hadn't been any time to. They'd been on the run from the moment they'd met, but her instincts told her that now would not be a good time to bring it up, so she kept quiet. Maybe after they emerged from the labyrinth catacombs, if they ever did, she would broach the subject. For now, it seemed best to just let it lie. "I'm surprised the Cathans gave up so easily," Pavan said abruptly to the droid. "They didn't even follow us into the tunnel." "I've been wondering about that as well," I-5 said. "Two possibilities come to mind, neither of them particularly pleasant to contemplate. The first is that they may be planning another trap of sort." "That's what I was thinking," Pavan replied. "What's your second scenario?" "That there may be something up ahead that even the Cathans fear." Pavan did not reply. They trudged on through the bowels of the planetary city, and Darsha mulled over the droid's words. That certainly didn't paint a cheerful picture of the immediate future. Something even worse than Cathans? So that was chapter 21. Everybody still awake? Alright, sound off. Who's not dead? Everybody still there? I know! Already! Yeah, these are fairly... So Tell you what, I'll be nice. I'll read till chapter 24 tonight because chapters 22 and 23 are rather short. I'll be nice. Alright, chapter 22. Darth Maul followed his instincts that led him to a short distance along the transit tube and down a stairwell, and from there into a dark tunnel. He moved swiftly but cautiously. He knew that as deep in his guts of the planet there lived creatures that even a Sith Lord would have a hard time dealing with. But they would not keep him from overtaking his quarry and contemplating his mission. He would kill Pavan first, for two reasons. Because he was the primary target, of course, but also because Maul would then be free to take his time killing the Jedi. He did not anticipate her putting up much of a fight. His impression was that she had been naught but an apprentice to the Twi'lek he had killed, and thus not much of a potential opponent. But she was still a Jedi, and he could toy with her for a bit before delivering the fatal blow. He felt he deserved some entertainment as a partial recompense for all the trouble they had been putting him to. The subterranean course he followed was as dark as coal. Even Maul, whose eyes were far more sensitive to light than a human's, could barely see enough to make his way. But he was not depending on vision so much as the perturbations in the Force to guide him. Now he could sense them ahead. He would not go astray. "Aw, hi, Brownie!" Nevertheless, he felt impatient. He wanted to run, to rapidly close the distance to his prey, to be done with all this. But only fools rush into unknown and hostile territory, and Darth Maul was no fool. He had pushed his hood back the better to hear anything that might warn him of a threat. Then he paused abruptly, listening to faint vibrations. He knew he was not alone. "Ah, thank you." The dank and miasmal air was still, and even the disturbance he sensed in the Force was most of the most subtle nature. Still, he had no doubt that he was being watched. The almost non-existent light told him that he was standing in a wide part of the tunnel, with several side passages opening onto it. It was from these that he suspected the attack would come. "Yeah, pretty much, Brownies." Moving very slowly, he dropped his gloved hand to the lightsaber dangling at his belt. He did not expect the assault to come from above, but he was not taken by surprise when it did. He sensed the electroshock net dropping down from overhead, and he knew that if he tried to slash it with his energy blade, the power surge would reverberate back down his arm and through him with devastating effect. So instead, he dived forward, executing a smooth shoulder roll that carried him beyond the reach of the mesh. He came to his feet and spun about, lightening both ends of his weapon as he did so. And then they were upon him. "Ah, thank you for that tofu!" Darth Maul once again abandoned himself to the dark side, letting it guide his movements and power his strikes. He stood in center of the maelstrom of hulking silhouettes, visible only in brief stroboscope flashes as the whirling energy blade struck them down. He recognized them from his studies of Coruscant's indigents, Chthons, degenerate subterranean humanoids considered by many scholars to be apocryphal. His master would be most interested to learn that they actually existed, assuming, of course, he did not slay them all. By the time they broke off the attack and retreated, howling, into the side tunnels, there were several fewer in existence than they had been moments before. Maul had killed, as best he could count in the darkness, 9 of the Losmul creatures. He moved on, continuing to follow the trail and wondering if Pavan and the Jedi had encountered the Chthons as well. If they had, he felt it strongly possible that they had not survived. Perhaps his job had been done for him. That would be a disappointment, as he would have been deprived of the pleasure of the kill. But at least the mission would be at an end. Of course, he could not assume that this was the case, not until he found definitive evidence. The human had certainly proven harder to kill than he had anticipated so far. He pressed ahead through the everlasting night, alert for the possibility of more attacks. As Lorne followed I-5 through the dark tunnel, he considered various possible solutions to his situation. There didn't seem a lot of them. In all his years as a businessman, information broker, and even working for the Jedi, he certainly hadn't come across anything this challenging before. Pursued by the Sith, who weren't even supposed to exist, into the deepest pits of the city where flesh-eating cannibals stalked him. It was a challenge, no doubt about it. Assuming that they made it back above ground and were able to return to the civilized levels of society, what should his next move be? He knew that the Padawan planned on taking him straight to the Jedi Temple so that he could share his information with Mace Windu and the other council members, but that event was not anywhere near the top of Lorne's list of desires. Certainly the Jedi would be best at protecting him from the Sith, assuming their tracker had not been killed in the explosion, but as far as he was concerned, it would be a solution almost as bad as the problem. To be a resource held and used by the Jedi, it was a sickening thought, one that evoked far too many memories Lorne had worked hard to put away. So instead of giving in to the feeling that threatened to overwhelm him, he considered the obvious option: run. The key question was how to get on board a ship that could take him and I-5 far enough away to avoid being tracked by both the Sith and the Jedi. The spice transport I-5 had arranged passage on had already left, but there was certainly no dearth of ships on the spaceports. Yeah. Once they were off Coruscant, it would be easier. It was a big galaxy, after all. There couldn't be that many Sith out there, or there would have been rumors that the Jedi would have picked up on by now. And if there were only a few, Lorne reasoned, it wouldn't really be in the Sith's interest to spend much time tracking down one low-life information broker. So that was the plan. Get on a fast ship, maybe a smuggler, and leave Coruscant behind. He didn't know how he was going to pay for passage yet, but he would figure something out. They could hightail it out of there to some backwater planet like Tatooine, hole up in the Dune Sea or the Junlin Waste for a while, become part of the scenery. After a few years, he could maybe open a tavern in some place like Mos Eisley. It wasn't particularly thrilling life to contemplate, but at least it was a life. Of course, I-5 might not be too happy about all the sand. Droids tend to need a lot of oil baths in environments like Tatooine's. Lorne looked thoughtfully at his partner walking ahead of him, the droid's metallic shell catching the reflected light from his photoreceptors. He would need to discuss this plan with him, see if I-5 had any new angles about the money end of it. The droid always seemed to have the right idea to complement Lorne's own. Of course, to do this, he would have to get a few moments away from the Jedi. Darsha. Her name was Darsha. With an uncomfortable start, Lorne realized that he was feeling a little guilty at the thought of running out on her. He'd hated the Jedi with an all-inclusive passion for so long, it was hard to see any of them as individuals. After all, she had saved his life. It was difficult to get past the fact that she was a Jedi, but deep down he knew that she was more than that. She was a person, even likable, all hard though that it was to believe, and admirable in a number of ways as well. Considering that her mentor had been killed in that explosion, she was carrying her grief fairly well. She'd saved all of them back there with Cathans, too, no question about that. But not because she liked you, only for the information. Lorne nodded to himself. He had to keep in mind that the Jedi did nothing that did not serve their own interests. Nothing. He would be doing himself no favors to walk into their clutches. No, the best way out was to run. But to book passage on even a garbage scow was financially out of the question at this point. And then he remembered. Tudin Saul. A few months past, he'd given the owner of a successful chain restaurant a tidbit of data that helped the Sakian keep... Sakian? The Sakian? Wait a minute. Tudin Saul. Is that the guy from Attack of the Clones? Isn't Tudin Saul the guy that Obi-Wan gets information from? I feel like that's the same one. At the time, Lord had been flush and had charged only a few drinks. Well, more than a few. But Sal had promised him a favor if the day ever came that he needed one. As far as Lorne was concerned, that day was here. Tudin Saul was known to have strong contacts with several smuggling organizations, including Black Sun. He would know how to get off Coruscant. Lorne felt revitalized by the possibility. This was a good plan, if he could just stay alive long enough to make it happen. Ahead of him, the droid slowed down. There was a change that Lorne could feel in the air. The echoes of their footsteps seemed to be hollower, more distant. I-5 confirmed it. For those of you who are interested, the cavern we have just entered is roughly 700 standard meters wide, 200 meters across, and festooned with stalactites starting 40 or 45 meters above our heads. The ledge we are on, unfortunately, ends within 7 meters, culminating in a drop that is, the droid paused, currently not measurable with modest sensory capabilities. Terrific, Lorne thought. Darsha heard Lorne Pavon release a long-suffering fly. Let me guess, he said. We have to jump across. Not unless you've gained sudden greater levitation powers than our Sith friend, the droid replied. Darsha reached out with the Force. She sensed nothing other than the usual low-level life signs found everywhere. It feels empty, she said. Well, thank you, Mistress of the Force, but pardon me if I don't stop worrying, Pavon replied sarcastically. It seems like your track record with that skill is a little on the nebulous side. She glared at Pavon.
It so happens that even Jedi Masters, which I am not, can be taken by surprise by things that are not Force-sensitive. Creatures who make very little ripples in the psychic flow are sometimes as good as invisible. Abruptly, she remembered Bandara's leap toward the Sith and fell silent. After a moment, I-5 said, The good news is that there seems to be a bridge. Darsha moved forward to stand next to the droid. To keep her balance, she inadvertently put her hand on Pavan's shoulder, felt him tense and move away. What was it with him? She wondered. What did he feel the Jedi had done to him to make him hate her so much? Darsha remembered the look on Master Bandara's face when Pavan had introduced himself. Her mentor had known the man's name. What did that mean? She wasn't usually this prying type, but as soon as she got back to the temple, she'd do her best to find out. Sure, she thought, as if there would still be a place for her in the temple after all this. Fail the graduation exercise, get her master killed, and wind up nearly eaten by a bunch of blind monsters. What kind of Jedi was that? Not a very good one, she had to admit. Darsha shook her head slightly, trying to banish encroaching despair. There is no emotion, there is peace. She had made mistakes, that was for sure, and had probably lost any chance of ever becoming a Jedi. But until Master Windu or another member of the Council officially reassigned her, she would continue to do her duty as best she saw it. She would get Loren Pavan to the temple because his information would be valuable to the Council, could help maintain order against misuse of power. It was what a Jedi would do, and so it was what she would do. Thankfully, Pavan was not at all like Ulf the Fundorian, the one that had been nothing but bluster and cowardice. Pavan was hard to read, but his actions so far had been those of a loyal, brave individual. The only thing that made him difficult to get along with was his hatred of the Jedi. I-5 turned his photoreceptors up a few notches brighter and aimed them down at the bridge. Several large ropes, gray and dusty with age, stretched out from the end of the tunnel beyond the limited light put up by the droid. Across, the ropes had been laid in odd assortments of flat objects, boards, pieces of sheet metal, and other odds and ends. About the only things they had in common was that they were all more or less flat and laid out in the direction the group wanted to go. "Aw, thanks, Jimmy." Loren stepped out and jumped on one of the ropes. His balance was excellent, she noted, and he seemed to have a natural grace as he leapt. He saw her watching and pushed off an extra hard on the last bounce, doing a quick somersault in midair. "Rope seems strong enough to me," he said, landing in a perfect double-foot plant. He waited a moment before answering her unasked question. "I used to dabble in zero-G sports when I had a better lifestyle." The droid broke in. "If you two are finished playing primitive mating games, maybe we could see about traversing this bridge. There may be a Sith pursuing us, if you recall." "Excuse me?" Loren said. "Mating games?" Darsha felt indignant as well. "Your droid has a point. We need to keep moving." Mating games indeed, she thought. She stepped onto the bridge. Not likely. Okay. Oh, also, while we're reading this, like, Loren Pavan reminds me of the Jod from Skeleton Crew. Also, I have a question. So I got this weird thing this week. Did you guys, in the chat, I want to know, did you guys like Skeleton Crew if you saw it? Because I loved it. I thought it was amazing. It was adorable. It was good. But apparently everybody else hated it. Which I was like, I hadn't heard anybody who said they hated it. Not like, I mean, I heard people who didn't like Acolyte. Like, Acolyte I heard about. But, like, everybody else I talked to seemed to like Skeleton Crew. I thought it was great. I want more. I want more Skeleton Crew. I also want more Book of Boba Fett. Even though I will admit the Book of Boba Fett was not great, I still want more. but that's because it's Boba Fett. I need more Boba Fett. Yeah, it was like the Goonies. More. Thank you, Kylo Ren, for jumping in. Alright, we got one more chapter, which is only 2 pages. Alright. Chapter 23. Loren wished he had a weapon. Ahead of him, I-5 was armed with his finger blasters. I'm sorry, every time they say finger blasters... finger blasting. I can't. As well as a few other tricks, and behind him Darsha had her lightsaber. Finger blasters and lightsabers. Oh man! Don't mind me. I'm just gonna write that down because that where can finger blasters and lightsabers sounds like a fanfic. Oh. If you guys end up going on AO3 and you see some sort of story labeled finger blasters and lightsabers, it wasn't me. Wasn't me. Never mind. It's not me. It's not. Finger blasters and lightsabers aren't. It wasn't me. You saw nothing. You know nothing. Can I just say I'm really enjoying watching Hogan's Heroes? I realize that show is 40 years old. It was 1965. 1965. I can't do math. It's 60 years old. It's 60 years old. I realize it's a 60-year-old show, but it's funny. It is quite funny. I definitely like watching it. And by the way, side note, if you have never seen Hogan's Heroes, and you want to know a fun fact about Hogan's Heroes, is that the actors who play, I know for sure the actors that played Colonel Klink and the actor who played Schultz, they were both Jewish men who that escaped from Germany during World War II. I just think that's very interesting that they actually escaped the Yazis, and then they got to play this really ridiculous, idiotic, moronic, laughable characters, basically making fun of Yazis. I think there's been like some I think they even talked about it a couple times. It's like we got to like basically it was cathartic for them to like do this kind of thing. I just thought that was interesting. That fun fact, Schultz and Klink are actually escaped Jews from Germany. All right, chapter 23. Not rereading the finger blasters. The going was slow. There were no handrails on the bridge, and it didn't look like the planks, lids, and other objects they were walking on had been attached very firmly to the support ropes. Indeed, he got the opinion that they had been added after the trestle had been formed. By the Cathons, perhaps? It was impossible to say. The bridge, Lorne noted, was of very strange construction. In addition to the thick support cables that ran along either side of the odd planks they walked on, there were vertical cables every few meters, some coming from the roof of the cavern, as might be expected, but others stretching from the bridge supports down into the darkness below. What could all this be for? What kind of support cables? I think they're supposed to be ropes. It's for the bridge that they're on. I did not know that he was an openly gay man. That's kind of interesting. Jimmy, how old am I? How old do you think I am? Answer carefully, because I have some children that try and hurt my feelings, and then I have other people that are very flattering. Aw, thank you, Gutter. I look 22? Ah. You are so incredibly sweet. I will say that my 20th high school reunion will be in 2 years. Oh, that makes me sick. But 22? Oh, you are very sweet. I am 36. But you are so awesome. Means the skincare is working, man. It's working. man, that Korean skincare is just the best. I mean, well, it's weird. So, when I was in my teens, when I was 16, I looked like I was in my 20s. Like, I looked a lot older than 16. But then, like, I've just kind of, like, stayed, as far as, for the last couple of years, I'm like, people think I'm usually in my 20s. Although when I was in my 20s, people would ask me if I was a high school student. When I was 22, 23, I had gone to the gym, and I had decided I was going to hang out in the hot tub for a little bit afterwards, to relax, because I could. And I was sitting in the hot tub just chilling, and this guy walked in, and he's getting in the hot tub. He's an older gentleman, and he just goes, "So, does the high school have school today?" Or first he's like, "Hey." I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "You know the high school?" I was like, "Yep, I know the high school." And he goes, "The high school have school today?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And he goes, somehow he said something to the effect of, "Well, don't you go there?" And I'm like, "No, I am 22, but okay." Thank you, Gutter. Yeah, I am 36. I just turned 36 in December. I cannot believe that I am in my mid-30s. The really challenging one thing is, like, my cousin, who is kind of like, my cousin is kind of like a big brother, just from a whole lot of familial situations, but my cousin was making fun of me for being old, and I was like, "Stop making fun of me for being old," because he's, 12 years older than me. And he goes, no, because this is fine. It's like the only time I ever get to make fun of you for being old. Well, like a week after we came home, I got sciatica. And I was like, do not ever make fun of me for being old again, because then I get back pain. That made me feel old. That made me feel very old, getting sciatica. But thankfully, because I got sciatica, the pneumonia I had got taken care of a lot faster than the pneumonia Mando Dad had, because the sciatica they gave me prednisone for. And so the prednisone dried out my lungs faster. So I bounced back way faster than he did. Mando Dad was still sick like last month. He finally got over the pneumonia he got back in October in January. You saw some toes? Toes? I mean, yeah, I have feet. I mean, I don't do my toes. My feet are gross. Hi, Jacqueline. I am good. How are you? Hang on. There was another question. What state? The Midwest? No, I'm not from the Midwest. I was born and raised in Pennsylvania, and now I live in North Carolina. I am a transplant. But I sound Southern because I'm also neurodivergent, and I pick up the lingo of wherever I'm at. If I lived, like, the bad thing would be, like, if I lived in Britain for, like, a year, I'd come home and I'd sound British. Wait, you didn't get a screenshot. Oh, so congratulations, Jacqueline. You didn't get a screenshot. You didn't get a screenshot of my feet? Look, you want more of the spicy content? Then you gotta go on the Patreon for that one. That's what that's for. This is for the fun, clean, this is the good, clean, fun side. You want the Mando Mom After Dark side, you're gonna have to go to the Patreon. Making a TikTok toe collection. I am only diagnosed as ADHD, and I also have bipolar disorder. I strongly suspect that I am ADHD and not just regular ADHD, but I have not really explored that. I'm fine with the way it is right now. I'm not in school or anything like that, so I don't really need any extra stuff to do, and there is a lot of overlap between having ADHD and autism, so I probably have just really bad ADHD.
So I don't know. I diagnosed with ADHD when I turned 30. But as far as like the rest of it, I have no idea. Oh. So, yeah, I like to say neurodivergent because then it's like, I usually like to say I'm neurodivergent because then I feel like it just kind of like everybody, we're all just neurodivergent, we're all together. Like, I feel like it's just, nobody has to say they're autistic or they have ADHD or, I think there's other forms of neurodivergency. Couldn't think of what they are. But, and I usually, yeah, all under the umbrella. I honestly think that in like 10, 15 years, we're going to see, assuming we actually get people investigating these things and doing, yeah, special needs. No, not special needs. When I said, like, I don't have any special needs. Like, I don't have any, like, an IEP, but what's an IEP for adults? Like, I don't have any accommodations. I don't have any accommodations that I need. I mean, other than medication. But yeah, I can't think of any. But anyway, being neurodivergent is just the way it is. And the thing is, I always like to clarify, like, I am very careful about my language when I describe having bipolar disorder. I have bipolar disorder. I am not bipolar. I have bipolar disorder. It is not something I could control. If I can control it, my life would be a lot better because, you know, if I could control a manic phase when I need to get stuff done, I would. Unfortunately, I don't have control over that. Sometimes it works out great. Sometimes I get a manic phase when I need to get a whole lot of work done. And then sometimes I get a manic phase when I really need to be quiet and calm and cool and collected. And that isn't always so great, and vice versa. I have stuff I need to get done. I go through a depressive phase. That's always really hard. Because when you have a full-time job and you're a parent and you do all these other like things, like having depression sucks. So I'm very careful about the language of it because it's not something I can control, and I feel like in order to get rid of the stigma around mental health, you really have to use language like that because, again, it's not something I can control. I can't just pull myself out of my bootstraps or pull myself down by my bootstraps. The opposite of being depressed and manic. Explain what bipolar means. It means that my brain does not do the dopamine and the serotonin properly. But it is like you've got two poles of moods. Oh, hang on. Puzzle piece. As soon as it loads. Oh, it's a bird. Oh, I did not do that right. And now we've got some sort of pyramid forest. I'm pretty sure these are AI generated images. Alright, there we go. It's more than just happy sad though. Like it's really high moods and then really low moods. I mean, most everybody knows what depression is, but to understand mania, for me, and for a lot of other people, but for me and the way my mania works, I don't sleep. I don't need sleep. Like think of it like Will Ferrell in Elf, when he's like, when she asked him, was like, oh, did you get a good night's sleep? He goes, yeah, I got a whole 15 minutes. That's kind of what it's like in a manic phase for me, is I don't need sleep. And there are a lot of people, particularly if they're undiagnosed or they're not medicated or they're not taking their medication, a manic phase could mean that they don't sleep at all, and that's where you'll see like you'll see people who have bipolar disorder do things that are a little they're a little off the rails. Usually it's because they don't sleep. They haven't slept in days or weeks, depending on how long the manic phase lasts. And so, I mean, if you don't sleep,
that's not good for your brain. It doesn't matter whether you're manic or not. Your brain needs sleep. So if you don't sleep, you're going to start hallucinating, and it's a whole thing. So that's where you get like, when you see a TV show talking about somebody with bipolar disorder, usually in pop culture, they're usually referring to somebody who is in extreme mania. I have never gotten that bad. It's kind of where you get workarounds. You figure out a way to deal with it. So like me, when I'm manic, I basically find ways to force myself to sleep. It's really challenging, and I usually only get about 1 to 2 hours of sleep a night when I'm manic, but I force myself to sleep so that my brain at least gets, it sleeps a little bit so that I don't go nuts. Like, I don't know how to put that, so I don't go nuts. I don't typically like the way that TV shows and pop culture talk about bipolar disorder, because they really do. I will say this, a lot of times when you see somebody who has bipolar disorder on things like Law and Order or Criminal Minds or something like that, really those people, they're portraying something that's closer to what schizophrenia is, not so much as what bipolar is. Lots of people have bipolar disorder and hold fully functioning lives. Genetically, I get it from my family, like it's genetic. So there's more than one of me in my family that's got it, but nobody has gone off the rails and like eaten faces off of people, like none of that. It's just it's poorly described in pop culture, and I don't like the way it's described. And everybody knows what depression looks like. It's the mania that really people don't understand. Face food. So yeah, it's more than just happy sad. Mania is a whole different animal. And most people know what depression looks like, but it's not necessarily easy to see what mania looks like. And I, more often than it depends. If I forget to take my medication, I'm usually more in a hypomanic state, which is like, think of it like, this is your normal baseline. Like, this is where people are normally. Like, you're behaving normally, you sleep a normal amount, everything's cool. You know what depression looks like. Mania is like way up here, but a hypomania, you're kind of like here. And for somebody who is bipolar, recognizing that they're in hypomania is a good way to get you to understand that, okay, you need to put in some safeguards because you're probably about to go manic. But if you're in or you just came down off of mania. But a hypomania state, everybody just thinks you're having a good time. Like you're just getting stuff done. You've got high energy. Hypomania in people is actually like usually looks really good in today's society because you're getting stuff done. You're happy. You got a little pep in your step. Like there's and the worst for me usually is if I get a hyperfixation while I'm in a manic state. That is when I am the most dangerous, because I will drop $800 on stuff I don't need, and it's dangerous if those things happen. You need hypomania in your life. Hypomania is not, like I said, I've gotten to the point where I can recognize it. I can recognize when I'm transitioning into the phases because of therapy, because I'm in tune with my body. Like, my therapist was like, how do you know when you're manic? I was like, I don't sleep. The difference between hypomania and mania for me is how much I sleep. Hypomania, 4 or 5 hours a night, and I'm fine. I don't need 8 hours of sleep. Depression, I need 20 hours of sleep a day. I am just constantly tired. Mania, 1 to 2 hours of sleep a day. Maybe 3 if I'm feeling really generous to myself. But yeah, it's a whole thing. And to me, the reason I say I have bipolar disorder, I can't control it, and it really is. It's like living with any other health condition. It's like living with my thyroid condition. I have to keep it in check. I have to take medication. Like, if I could control it, I would, but I can't. So I have to do things. And yes, diet, exercise, all of those things, they help, just like they help with any other illness.
So, anyway, that's my bipolar learning for tonight. Hi. I thought I don't... I would probably make more videos about it, but I'm still working through, like, the stigma of having it. Like, it took me a long time to at least admit that I had it. And I've gotten more comfortable with it. I think it's Taylor Tomlinson, who talks about when she got diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and I had the exact same thing. So I was seeing a therapist, and I was like, yeah, I definitely have depression, and she diagnosed me with ADHD. And then we talked about how, like, I've tried antidepressants before, and they didn't really work for me. They made me super manic and super crazy and all these things. Like, they made me really high energy and jittery, and I didn't like it. And so she's like, well, since normal antidepressants don't work for you, we're going to put you on this. And I was like, okay, cool. And then, like, a month, I'd been on this stuff, and a month later, I had to go because I had strep throat to the point of where I could not breathe. And this was, like, the week before the world shut down with COVID. But I had strep throat so bad that it was getting difficult to breathe because I couldn't, my throat was so sore. And so I went in and I was telling them about all my medication, and they're like, oh, so you have bipolar disorder. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. And then the nurse just goes, well, you're on bipolar medication. And I was like, am I? She goes, didn't you know? And I'm like, no. So then, like, the week later, when I had a call with my therapist, because the world shut down, so it was a virtual appointment, I was like, hey, it was like that thing with Taylor Thompson. Do we think that I have? And she goes, well, yeah. I'm like, oh, well, you could have told me that. So, anyone notice the new color for inbox notifications? I did not, but I can't update my app, so it might be an app update that I can't get because TikTok isn't on the App Store yet. See, the only thing I Googled about my medication when I started on it was why does it cause poor circulation in your hands and feet, which it does. My bipolar medication turns my feet and my hands into icicles. My hands get really cold, my feet get really cold. I can deal with the feet because I can put on socks and that usually helps. But my hands, because I type all day on the computer, it is really hard for me to figure out what to do with my hands. I'll have like fingerless gloves that I'll wear, or I'll just like every couple of hours like go and like stick my hands in a heating pad to like warm them up. Ooh, hormone blockers. That's kind of funny, Omaha. Okay. Ooh, you have Raynaud's? Ooh. Yeah, that would cause some poor circulation in the hands and feet. Doesn't that make your eyes and your mouth super dry all the time? And your nose? Or is that a different thing I'm thinking of? I think that's Raynaud's. I have two friends that I think it's Raynaud's is what they have. It's amazing how many autoimmune disorders there are out there. And fun fact, if you have one autoimmune disorder, you probably have at least 3 others. Aw, thank you, Raider Romo. I love to know when they're wearing the stormtroopers. Oh, yeah. I think it's Raynaud's is what my friends have, but it for them, like my one friend has to like, even when we were in the office, she had like a mister that was aimed at her face because her eyes would get dried out so badly from having Raynaud's. What is it, Casual Friday on the Death Star? The Death Star lives are on Sundays if I could get around to actually having time to do them on Sundays. It's harder than it sounds. The other problem is I need a green screen to be able to move my Death Star IT live stuff to I have my webcam over here, To move it to like Twitch and YouTube, I need an actual green screen because it's not. The OBS Studio and Streamlabs is not as intuitive as the TikTok one, so I can't do it. So anyway, hang on. Let me finish this and then we can go back to chatting. Hang on. In addition to the thick support cables that ran along either side of the odd planks they walked on, there were vertical cables every few meters, some coming from the roof of the cavern, as might be expected, but others stretching from the bridge supports down into the darkness below. What could all this be for? He voiced the question. Based on the depth of excavation, I-5 said, I postulate that this could have been used as an access point for the underground oceans. Possible, Lauren thought. Most of Coruscant, except for a few park areas, was built over landmass. The water had to go somewhere. But why this bridge? I mean, it's pretty primitive construction. Would not have been why not have a better way of getting around? The droid paused and looked over its shoulder, photoreceptors gleaming. Perhaps the Cathons are responsible. Why can't you just be grateful that it's here when and where we need it? I-5 resumed his progress forward. Lauren raised an eyebrow. Who pissed in your power supply? He muttered. He heard a chuckle from behind him. Great. Shot down by his own droid. And a Jedi got a laugh. I've got to ask, Darsha said. How did you two wind up working together? I'm impressed. You managed to come up with a topic even less interesting than his, I-5 said. Perhaps you aren't in need of a distraction, Darsha said. But I sure could use one after the last few hours. The woman had a point. Lauren, somewhat to his surprise, was the one who answered. I acquired I-5 a few years back when I first got started selling information. He was a protocol droid belonging to a rich family who left him with the children. The children were spoiled. They used to do things like make him jump off the roof to see how high he would bounce. The memory surprised him with its intensity. He recalled the smell of the junk dealer's shop, a mixture of hydraulic fluid and ozone of cooking circuits. It had been a humid day, and he was tired. He'd been fired from the Jedi Temple only a few days previously. Not that they had called it that, of course. There is no emotion, there is peace. He'd read the words 1,000 times when he'd studied his enemies, fought their power over his life and Jax's. The words he had never made sense before, but they didn't now. I figured that he might have some interesting secrets tucked away that I could use, so I bought him and brought him back online. Lauren remembered the first words the droid had spoken. They had hit him with utter hopelessness and helplessness, reminding him of his own. I am I-5YQ, programmed for protocol. There had been a pause after the initial main sequence had activated, and then the droid had asked, Are you going to hurt me? Oh. Why would anyone want to hurt a droid? Fury had blossomed in Lauren when he'd heard those words. He, too, had been broken into pieces, recently. Hurt savagely by those who he had always been told would protect him. The Jedi. Oh, we are reading Darth Maul's Shadowhunter. Who would want to hurt a droid? That's so terrible. That. Sleemo. Sleemo hurt droids. Darsha watched Lauren go quiet. Something seemed to have disturbed the man in telling of his story. Something that she felt reticent to press him on. She decided to ask the droid instead. So he fixed you up and you talked him into being your partner? I-5 answered after a pause. Lauren had been treated badly recently by his employers. He felt that I was a kindred spirit, at least in potential. He had a friend who was handy at reprogramming droids, installing a top-of-the-line AI cognitive module, and deactivated my creativity damper as well. As a result, I am as close to full sentience as any droid could be. Intrigued, Darsha had to ask, who was his employer? I-5 glanced at Lauren before replying. The Jedi. Oh, hang on. Terrible is a strong word. She had suspected as much. That explained Master Bendar's recognition of the name. But why and how had the Order treated Lauren so terribly? And as far as she knew, they always dealt fairly with all employees who were non-Jedi. It didn't make any sense. How long have you been trained at the temple, Padawan Asant? It was plain, at least, that I-5 was a better droid than the one assigned to watch over the Fandorian in the safe house. That one hadn't recognized her as a Padawan.
I've lived in the temple practically all my life. My formal training started when I was 4, she said, and probably ended as of today, she added silently. I have been in business with Lorne Pavan for 5 standard years. Then the droid went silent and left Darsha to her own thoughts. She realized that he had given her a clue to the mystery of Lorne's past. She cast her thoughts back 5 years earlier. A new student had come to the temple back then. A 2-year-old, Darsha remembered, because it was the boy's high midichlorian count. She hadn't heard all the details, of course, but the temple was a small pond, and ripples of any discord traveled quickly across its surface. Apparently, the boy had been the son of a temple employee who had been fired after he agreed to let his son be trained. Why, she wasn't sure. She gave Lorne a measuring look. If he were that student's father, and if his son had been taken from him without his consent to be raised by the Order, well, then it was certainly no wonder that he had hated the Jedi.
Aw. You know, that's something that we don't ever think about, is, like, the parents. Like, do the Jedi force the parents to give up their children? I mean, it sounds like they do, which is also terrible. Oh. They keep claiming it not forced. Yeah, but if they force people to give up their kids, I mean, I'd be pissed too. Don't tell me to get... The day the Jedi come to take one of my children is the day that we are definitely Mandalorians. I'm not taking my kids without a fight. Just saying. Don't ever try and take my kids. Will not go well for you. I can bite. She tried to imagine how she would feel in his place, but could not. She looked at Lorne again and knew her suspicion was right. It certainly explained the man's attitude toward her and Master Bandara. She felt a great upsurge of pity for him then, so much that she had to look away from him lest he read it in her expression. She turned her focus back to their surroundings. Well, Chancellor, I would point out that the Empire did try and find all Force-sensitive children and either murder them or take them into service. Just saying. Pretty sure I saw that episode of Rebels. She turned her focus back to their surroundings. It still rankled her that she hadn't noticed the Chthons before they had attacked, and she had vowed to herself not to let something like that happen again. Seeking out life forms around her with the Force was a task with varying degrees of difficulty. Intelligent, Force-sensitive beings were usually easy to spot, of course, while lower-level forms, insects and animals for example, did not broadcast nearly as much of a blip on her mental radar. It was true that her mastery of the Force was nowhere near perfect, but that was no excuse for not doing the best she could. Her Twi'lek master had once explained to her that her sensitivity and fine-tuning came with time. As a Padawan, he had said, I could push boulders around with ease, but seeds were next to impossible. Yeah, Mando culture kids are taught how to survive. Well, that's just part... Well, it depends. I mean, we don't know so much about, like, Mandalorian culture. Like, true Mandalorian... Like, we know about the neutral planet of Mandalorians, and we know about Children of the Watch. Know a little bit about Death Watch, but like a normal Mandalorian? Like, what was a normal Mandalorian like? Yeah, I mean, and there's legends too. But we know very little about what normal Mandalorian children were like. The thought reminded Darsha that it was time to check on the possible pursuit again. Ever since they had entered the underground tunnels, she had periodically scanned behind them for any signs of the Sith. She had not sensed his approach before the Chthon attack, and was hoping that he had been killed along with Master Bandara, but she couldn't take the chance of becoming complacent. She closed her eyes, keeping a slight cognizance of her immediate surroundings with the Force, and cast her awareness backwards along the path they had traced across the bridge, across the ledge, back into the tunnel. A cold pillar of darkness formed in her mind as her awareness reached the tunnel. Power and energy seemed to radiate off of it like electricity from a thundercloud. He was right behind them.
Lord, I-5, the Sith is behind us, almost to the bridge. There was no response from either of them. Darsha opened her eyes and for a moment forgot the imminent threat of the Sith. They had found reasons why the Chthons had not pursued them. Oh, man! We're leaving off at a very crazy point, but you guys did get a bonus chapter tonight, so. Mandalorian of the Corn. Oh, that's terrible! Ooh, I didn't show you guys. Look. I printed Tiny Dinies. Look, I have a Tiny Diny! Even though I can't have Tiny Diny gifts anymore. Check it out. And it's a Valentine's one. That's what's on the printer right now. But I printed these. These are the Valentine's gifts. These are what Tiny Mando's going to hand out for Valentine's Day. I even got my little Mylar bags. So, check it out. They're so cute. I'm keeping this one as a good luck charm. Because I'm keeping it as a good luck charm, although I have a very sinking feeling that Tiny Mando's going to come up here and steal it, because she usually does. Some say that the Sith apprentices were treated the best. Who says that? Who says that? I just gotta loosen the joints up, because the joints on this one are really stiff. That's the one thing about, like, articulated toys. They're great, but, like, some of them, like, they get really stiff joints. This Darth Sidious guy. Oh, Darth Sidious guy. Okay, he said that. Alright. So, yeah. It's a Valentine's Tiny Diny. What is yours is mine, what's mine is mine. Yeah, that's pretty much what Tiny Mando does. I have a real problem when she comes up here. Like, some of the things like this. I just dropped filament on the ground. It's fine. This, she keeps trying to take, even though this was a commissioned print. And I'm like, this is not yours. This is not mine. This is something that somebody paid me for. You can't have it. So yeah, isn't it pretty? I love this filament. I use it. I make other my favorite dragon to make with this is like a phoenix dragon. But this is just what I had on the... What type of printer? I have two printers. I have this one behind me, which is my Bamboo Lab A1. And then in the far back corner of my office is my Ender 5. My Creality Ender 5 Plus. That's huge. That I do use for bigger prints. For stuff I don't need really fine detail on. Kind of looks like a spinal cord. It does kind of look like a spinal cord. But yeah. And then I actually printed another dragon initially for the same person. They didn't really care about the color. So I had initially printed this one, but the foot did not print properly. And yeah, so the feet didn't print properly on it. They didn't have good bed contact, and like one of the tail segments did not print properly. So obviously I can't sell this one, but one of June's little friends at church, not June, why did I say June? Not June's friends. This little boy at church named Gabe, he asked for it. He wanted a dragon. And he's like, I want a free dragon. I'm like, this is a lot of filament. And I was like, no, you can't have that. And I was like, no. And then, because this one didn't print properly, I figured I'll just give it to him. He really wanted a dragon, so I'll just give it to him. It's fine. But yeah, I have these Mylar bags that I use for 3D printing, like small stuff that people ask for to give it to them. So I had these Mylar bags. So these are what Tiny Mando's going to hand out. I don't know what Mini Mando's going to hand out yet. I think we're going to do... Oh, I was going to make fidget spinners for her. Yep. So you're still clanking around with your enders. I think they have a bigger... I mean, so I can print a full-size helmet on the A1.
I mean, you've got to do some finagling to like fit it. You can't like just sit it straight down. You've got to like, and that's it. I mean, I can fit a Night Owl helmet. I can fit Bo-Katan's helmet on there. I have not attempted to try Mando's or like Boba Fett's, which are much wider. There is a bigger Bamboo Lab. I don't know what model it is, but there is a bigger one. Yeah, it's the X1E. The Bamboo Lab X1 is 400 by 400, but they are $1,400-$1,500. They're very expensive. I mean, I don't need like huge printers for multicolor, at least not that I know of. So I'm perfectly fine with what I currently have. Oh, filament is on sale. Did you know that filament is on sale? I definitely want to like play around with PLA this year and like try some like, oh, what is ASA? I want to play around with like other filament types this year. But yeah. Is that the exterior or build size? That's the build size. When you're talking about a printer, 400 by 400 would be build size. Sorry, I don't accept live invitations from people I don't know. Yeah. I definitely want to, I want to try some, ooh, filament swatches. I have filament swatches. I got filament swatches with my thing. Yeah, so I have a Bamboo Lab A1. That's what's on here right now. Or that's what's running right now. Huh. Did not know that there was special outdoor filament. Good to know. But, so when I went to go print these, like, I put like 20 on the build plate and only half of them printed successfully. Like they came unstuck and stuff like that. So I'm reprinting them so I can pack the rest of these things. Do I have glow in the dark filament? Yes, I do. I have two different kinds actually. I have a rainbow glow in the dark filament, and then I have a it's black and then it's got like glow sparkles in it. So remember ordering a Sidious lightsaber from Etsy? Did you check? I mean, I would go with level up sabers. I like level up sabers, and Master Allen is really awesome. He hasn't done me wrong yet. It's not charged. And this is the one that has the special charger. So, can you order a black Tiny Diny? Yeah. I have people ask to buy like 3D prints for me all the time, and I don't know how to like, I don't have an Etsy store and I don't want an Etsy store. I don't really know how to process like orders for that kind of stuff. I mean, but yeah, I can. I mean, the only reason they're this tiny is because I am printing a whole bunch for Valentine's Day presents. I think they're traditional, like the file, this is like at 50%, I think. Hang on. I'll tell you in a second what size they're at. This is 40%. So, does it say? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I could, if you want one that's this tiny, sure. I just gotta figure out how much that costs and then shipping, but can I get one of the denies with issues? You could, if I didn't already put them, like, threw them away. I mean, they're not, it's not just issues. Like, we're talking, like, they're just spaghetti. They printed, like, the first couple of layers and the rest of it is spaghetti. Like, it's not, they're not Diny shaped. Like, if not Diny, why Diny shaped? They're not Diny shaped. They're a mess. Really? Oh man, if I'd kept them, I could have done the, oh look, a strawberry. Oh yeah, a strawberry. I did a strawberry. Ha ha. Yeah, I should have done that. Yeah, but the Bad Batch had their, I like the Bad Batch. Well, I like Crosshair. Crosshair? No, Echo's my favorite because he's from my homie squad. And then Tech, and then Crosshair. And the only reason why is because Crosshair's kind of a jerk. But I think Crosshair's hotter than Tech. But he loses points because he's a jerk. And I can't even... Hunter, again, Hunter's like Rex for me. Like, I would like to be friends with Hunter. I'm just not attracted to Hunter. And Wrecker belongs to Nala. So... I can't have any feelings for Wrecker because I'm not a Wrecker girly, and the Wrecker girlies are... I've read some of those stories on AO3. They just, whoa. Wrecker girlies are on a whole nother level. So... I think I need to take the... Yeah, hang on. There's like filament dust stuck here. I think that's why his leg is so... Yeah, there we go. I need my tweezers to like clear this out. I have like a whole like 3D print cleaning kit. So, like, when I have prints like this that... You're a Ventress man? I mean... Well, wait a minute. Which version of Ventress? Like, I'm much more of... I like Night Sister Ventress. You would like to cosplay as Wrecker? I mean, I've never seen anybody try and cosplay Wrecker, but that would be really cool to see. I've seen people cosplay General Grievous. So, go for it, man. All right. It is almost midnight, and I gotta get this stuff cleaned off my face because I gotta go to bed because I'm leaving early in the morning. So, anyway, tomorrow... Yes, it's sleepy times for Mando Mom. But anyway, tomorrow night, we'll be doing the next 2 chapters of Invoking the Blood on the Patreon because it is a spicy book, so it is an 18 and over only live. But if you are not signed up for the spicy lives, you can go over there. The book is spicy. I'm wearing slightly nicer tank tops. It's not that spicy, but spicier. Like jalapeno spicy, not Carolina Reaper spicy, but like jalapeno spicy. But anyway, that's over on the Patreon. If you want to listen in on that, you gotta sign up for the Patreon for that one. Anyway, I will see you guys on Sunday, hopefully, for Death Star IT Live, and I will be posting a video tomorrow of the Narkina 5 swim team and the Polar Plunge supporting the Special Olympics of Virginia. So anyway, love y'all. See you tomorrow. Have a good night. Don't do anything unsafe.
You will not convince me that my assumptions of these people are wrong, so without further explanation, number one, someone please take the ring from the Cheeto, throw the ring and the Cheeto into the volcano. Clearly they have the same makeup artist. Oh look, two greasy men. One whispers in the king's ear and the other one eats the president's ass. Last but not least, the only acceptable outcome to this whole situation is that he gets taken out by a woman as she screams, "I am no man," as she does it.